We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
What we do not do is spy unlawfully on Americans.
We are leaving in 2014, period. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new all-out offensive.
You are listening to Biting the Bullet with Luke and Typo.
But I don't know. I still think that whole shit is funny with, I really want to bring light to the fucking chick just destroying, or the dude just destroying all the chicks at Olympic swimming.
Yeah. Wasn't it?
Like it's just fucked up.
Yeah. Like, I think was it Penn State or was the Olympics, or was it she competing from Penn State in the Olympics? Maybe that.
I think that's what is it, because she's in the Olympics, and it won in Leah Thomas, and she was ranked like 498th in swimmers as a male, and then has gone through or started to transition. And I don't remember how much she beat the record time, but she's broken like a few records now swimming against all female competitors in the Olympics. Like it's going to back. Like I feel like this. I was just saying that it's comical right now. It's comical right now. It's comical. And you were saying that there's a lot of people that look at women's sports as pretty much a joke in this country and in other countries. Like that's how it's taken. But with this whole new wave, it just makes it worse. And the only people that can stop it are the women that are competing, like the actual women that are competing, the definitional sex X chromosome that are competing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying. Women's sports to a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, is considered a joke. And maybe there is like a lot of people that would be more on board with women's sports if they got the exposure. Now, I don't necessarily think so, but no, whatever. Well,
and I always talk about it that it's on a curve, like it's like on a whatever that fucking curve is. It's not is it a hyperbolic curve? I don't remember. That math curve that gets closer and closer to zero. The closer you go up and the closer you get to zero on the x-axis and on the y-axis. I used to know the name. I can't think of it right now.
Exponential?
Exponential curve, yes. Exponential growth, and that's how it's labeled. So, like, women are at, like, the middle part of that curve on the upswing right now, I feel like. They're behind. Men are getting close. They're at the top of this curve for a lot of athletics. They're getting closer and closer to the highest point of the y-axis. And there's not as much room to, like, men have gotten to compete and train and do everything at such a different level than women have. And for a longer time that they're closer to the zero on the y-axis than the zero on the x-axis. And women are kind of in the middle of that curve where it's furthest away from both x and y, but it's the place of the most growth. Like they have the possibility for the most growth out of either like league, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because they can get better way faster. They would be behind, but where they're at, it's going to be completely different. Like the jumps in the game in athletics are going to visually be seen compared to the men, where it's going to be very small, but it's going to be tenths of seconds over a long period of time, where women, it's going to be, you'll see the next generation breaking records at, 2 seconds, 3 seconds of what the competition was before. And that's just because they're going to be able to do it longer. And people are going to be able to know how to train it better and this, that, or the other, specifically for the body types that are competing in those types of sports. You know what I mean? It's just going to be different. But at this current time, it's just not there. And there are people that are like, there are some women that are just absolutely dominant. Like Amanda Nunes is one of those women in female sports that like is absolutely dominant. Like I get it. She just came off a big loss to Juliana Pena. I get it, but just a fucking monster. Diana Taurasi, for who she was for the WNBA, absolutely dominant. Maya Moore, another one, absolutely dominant. The U of A softball team, of the Olympics, U of A softball team that fucking destroyed at like 3 Olympics in a row, absolutely dominant. They were so far ahead that it wasn't fun to watch them. Or UConn, or the Tennessee Vols, or things like that in the NCAA women's basketball, just absolutely dominant. And they figured it out quicker than other people, and now people are catching up because they trailblazed away. Like that's how it goes in sports. I mean, if you go back and look at 60s men's basketball, we'd make fun of a lot of those fucking players. There's a lot of street ball guys or a lot of varsity basketball players that would make them look like jokes, and that's because the game has evolved so much. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not like these guys still aren't the greats of basketball, or these aren't the greats of football, or whatever. It's just different. Like, our bodies are different. Like, everything's fucking changed. And I just think it's
in the sport,
so and there's money in the sport.
More people into it.
Yeah, and it's gotten more exciting for the men's sports a lot more quickly, because those were the only people that were able to compete. To be honest, that's just the way it was.
But what's gonna and the thing is what's gonna stunt any sort of possibility that women's sports and there is certain sports that women like volleyball, I'd rather watch women's volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the whole transgender thing coming into
women's sports, it's only affecting women's sports.
Yeah.
It's not affecting the male sports.
Yeah, I've never even heard of any sort of, I mean, I'm sure there might be one out there that's some sort of an exception, but they're probably not that good.
Yeah.
But it's always transgender women, men becoming women, dominating in these women's sports. And now it's eventually, if this continues, eventually it will just literally be another men's league. It's not even, even helping the cause.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just going to be crazy. And I didn't really want to spend too much on this, but I just thought it was funny to bring up. Because the only people that can stop it, there's a lot of dudes right now that are just and I'm kind of in that boat where it's that's your fucking problem now. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's wrong for them to do it anymore, because I don't care. Because at this point, if you've talked about women's sports and say that it's, lesser than male sports when it comes to aspects of any sport, you're, a white supremacist, white cis gendered male. And it's all right, fine. I'll just watch, I will tune into that game, because I'm going to watch this 6'4" hairy ass woman that I watched play in college basketball destroy WNBA players.
Yeah, dude.
That would be entertaining.
It used to be kind of a joke where it would be someone needs to put on a wig and go join the girls' team or whatever.
But now they're actually doing it.
Yeah, now they're actually it has come into existence. It's actually I don't think 10 years ago I would have ever predicted that they would let this happen inside what would be deemed as professional sports today. I just would not. I could not even comprehend or wrap my head around that. I'd be that's just insane. There's no way that's impossible.
Yeah.
It's just so kind of shows how kind of fucked Western culture has become.
And how fast.
Yeah.
How fast. Well, dude, I think that's something we're going to see coming out of this over the next, 3 years or whatever out of COVID. Because I just don't see it being as impactful as it's been the last 2. Obviously, I think that's generally supported by most people, but I just don't see the narrative holding up for as long anymore. We're kind of like, even some of them aren't really saying a whole lot about it because their midterms are coming up, and maybe they're holding off till their midterms, but there's going to be evaluations done on what happens to a society after 2 years of secluding from the rest of society. First, how angry people are going to be at each other, and second, how much people don't care about the people around them. They only care about themselves or their immediate family unit. They don't give a shit about the community or anything else like that. And then how much vitriol comes out of their fucking mouths when it's something that they don't agree with. They're just going to be like, yeah, it's just going to be, there's going to be studies done about what happened to American society over the last 2 years, and fucking Australia and New Zealand and some of those other ones. Canada's going absolutely insane right now. And, it's just going to be one of the wildest case studies ever. How can you destroy society fastest
on a global scale too?
Yeah.
Like, this is not just something that was only happened in one country or a few countries. Like, this happened in the entire world. Like, it was kind of insane. The whole world kind of went through this together. Now, definitely some countries were a lot more drastic than others, but yeah, the thing is too, is like, the Democrats scared their base so much that them rolling back these like mandates actually causes some sort of resistance from their base.
Yeah, it's going to cause backfire on them.
Well, they call it like there was college campuses where there was students protesting that not because they got rid of the mask mandate.
Yeah, they wanted the mandate back as they're walking around campus wearing masks, and nobody's telling them that they can't.
Yeah, like it's like no one's telling you don't have to wear a mask. It's just that the other people around that don't want to don't have to, and it's just, it's insane that happened up in Chicago, where like the teachers union started freaking out because they were going to roll back some of this restrictions and stuff, and it's just kind of like, I think sometimes, especially where I'm at now, I'm like kind of in this bubble, like no one really gives a shit. Everyone kind of just goes about their day, and I kind of get detached from like other places that were like severely bought into this sort of hysteria, and they believe it, and they're still holding on. And that's the thing. I think it puts a lot of like these Democratic politicians in a really tough situation where they can it's a lose-lose. They're either going to piss off some of their base for pulling these mandates back, or they're going to piss off the other base for continuing them that's sick and tired of this stuff.
And it's like, who's going to vote you in?
Yeah.
And there might not be anybody at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so crazy.
But did you see? I just saw this too. I don't remember who shared it, but it was like 4 rhinos. The Republicans, 4 rhinos don't vote or don't show up to some election process that they were having on if the states or the Supreme Court's decision was correct in canceling the OSHA mask mandate, the Biden mask mandate or vaccine mandate. Did you see that?
Oh, I did not. I must have missed this one.
Yeah, and it was like Romney, fucking the dude from Kentucky,
probably Liz Cheney.
Yeah, but they were like, basically they skipped out on it, so they didn't have to vote, and them not showing up would guarantee a Democratic victory, basically. But then you look at the voting, like the journalism on that was pretty garbage too, because then you look at the vote and it was like 27-41 or some shit like that. Like it was very, like, the 4 votes, the people that they focused on, didn't matter even in the grand scheme of things.
Oh.
But at the same time, it was just I just thought it was wild, because even I think the Republicans are going through the same shit right now. There's a few of them that are like, we're long-term Republican senators, like, we want to stay in power, and the powers that be are telling me this is the way to stay in power, so I'm going to stay in power because they know that there's election fraud, and that if they want to stay in, they can force everybody else out, and people will vote for the name that they remember.
Yeah, there's an interest, like I think on the flip side, for the Republicans is education's kind of a big thing.
Yeah, it's gotten big right now.
A lot of Republicans that, I mean, they're basically the base of the Republicans is like you either are pro school choice or you're a rhino. and
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these Republicans that are either being backed by teachers unions or whatever interest group or whatever reason they're not for the school choice bills that are going through their states. I mean, they're being called out by their by the Republican Party. I mean, say the Republican Party themselves, but like the Republican base is basically completely calling them out. And it's really cool to watch, like, hey, motherfucker, you're going to vote with how we want or you're done. And there's a guy on Twitter that was doing, I forgot his name. I think he was on Pete's show a while back, but he's basically doing the same type of thing, but for gun laws. Either you roll back gun laws or we're primarying you. And I'm like, fuck yeah, dude.
Dude, it's savage because at the same time, like, the thing is, like, most of these people that they're going to primary, they're not going to win. Like, they're not going to win because, like, whatever reason, like, you pick a fucking bunny out of the hat, you know, there's plenty of reasons why they won't win. But if one or two get in and some of them, and like people see that, like, that could cause a big shift. And I don't know, maybe there will be a time in the future. I don't know if there will be. I don't know of a better time for libertarians to win at a larger scale. You know, I don't really care. Yeah. I don't really care, to be honest. Like, some things that there's libertarians out there right now that are still espousing vaccine mandates because they think it's a threat to other people to be walking around with COVID-19. You know, like, it's coercion to have COVID-19 and not be vaccinated. You know, like, so the Libertarian Party, I don't really give a shit about at this point in time. Like, that's kind of just my general feeling. But I honestly believe whoever, if it is going to be a Dave Smith, Maj Toure, or Dave Smith, somebody else, or whatever it is that's coming out of the Mises Caucus, they need to be out there now saying, hey, we're running for president. Like, if they really want to do anything, hey, we're running for president. And as we're running for president this entire time, we are backing these people for senator. We are backing these people for governor. We are backing these people for state councils, city councils, this, that, or the other. And they really need to get on the fucking horse because they're going to do the same thing that we do every year. And that's, like, not really talk about, you know, the local election stuff. And then we're going to be like, we're running for president. Why does nobody vote for us? It's less than 3% of the entire national vote. And it's going to be very anticlimactic with a lot of steam right at the last 6 months. And then nothing comes of it. And we die out for another 4 years or 3.5 years until the last 6 months of the next election season.
Yeah. I mean, as the current state of the Libertarian Party, I would probably go out on a limb and say, at minimum, there's probably at least 2 million libertarians in this country. I will say,
I think that's a good minimum. I think that's probably a little low, but I think that's a good minimum.
Yeah. And they have like 20,000 donating members, like members of the Libertarian Party. Like, that's pretty fucking sad.
Yeah.
That means
I thought it was 20,000 for Mises Caucus.
I don't know how many Mises Caucus members, but 20,000 or 25,000 dues paying members is
of the Libertarian Party.
Nice. That's
like 0.00. That's the amount of Bitcoins I have.
Yeah, but will kind of defend them in
like
a way,
5 cents.
At least the Mises Caucus I'll kind of defend, where I think they're waiting to at least they're going to attempt
in January.
Everything that I know is they're going to in Reno in May.
July,
I believe
May.
It is. I think it's May because isn't the same time as Childeberg? I might be wrong. I don't know. But so I think maybe we'll start seeing some changes there. But I think overall, whatever political party it is, the time for it's, I mean, this is like the dawn of like the best time ever for populism. I
Yes.
mean,
We've talked about it a lot, right?
Yeah, you don't need to go through the traditional ways to get on TV, get your interview, and get endorsed or whatever. You can literally, Donald Trump's probably a good example of that. He, through social media, totally didn't have to go through the traditional channels on going on the news and doing these things. He could just directly talk to his base. And I think that's kind of like latching on everywhere right now, where you see these people that, don't really have a history of politics, kind of get famous being a political pundit first, just talking about politics all the time. And then they're like, you know what? I'm going to run. Fuck it. And I kind of love that. I mean, I don't really think it's a solution long term, but I think it definitely represents, if like a true democracy, which I'm not saying is a good thing, but it definitely represents like where a mass amounts of people can like follow someone, and with social media they have to be so much more personal, where like AOC has to go on fucking Instagram live all the time. I mean, to me she's completely like dumb. There's nothing
unhinged
there. And unhinged, but it works. That gets a lot of support for her. And I mean, she gets donations from people all over the country,
all over the world.
Probably. Marjorie Taylor Greene's another one. She doesn't have any like big donors. All of her support comes from regular people. And this is what I think, this is what's gonna become of our country. I don't think like the elites guarding the political parties and who gets to be who anymore. I think those days are kind of coming to an end, where the people are going to run who they want to run. And I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm sure they're still going to have the political parties and the establishment class people who are going to have their barriers, and they're going to have a lot more tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah.
But it's becoming a lot easier for people that are not who they liked to start getting into office in places. And basically they're deeming the entire Republican Party kind of like that right now.
Yeah, they really are. And it's just kind of like, it's funny. Like, honestly, those things are funny. Those things are funny because it's like comical to watch a comedian come to like political like relevance, I guess is the best word. Whether it's Dave Smith or Joe Rogan or, fucking Tim Dillon, like people go and look at their stuff to see their hot political takes. And that's hilarious. Wasn't the president of like some Eastern European country, was it Ukraine? Wasn't he a comedian? Because everybody was talking about like, this is from Black Mirror. Like, we've watched this in Black Mirror before. I think
you're right. I think it was Ukraine, but
I think it was Ukraine.
There was definitely someone won like their presidency or prime minister, whatever the fuck they call him, was a comedian before.
It was like a comedian or like a comic, like TV show person or something like that. I don't know. I just think it doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter who it is. Even like the Charlie Kirks and the Candace, what's her last name? Owens. And then like the Ben Shapiro's, the Crowders, or who are some on the left? The Young Turks, or
Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore.
Yeah,
maybe
like
shoe on head.
Yeah, shoe on head. Like just the fact that they have any sort of political relevance, that people will go to them for political takes, is hilarious. I don't hate it. It's funny. It's like legitimately
political takes.
I know. It's legitimately hilarious because and that's kind of how it should be, right? Like it should be people that you trust, that you have formed like some sort of like that. I feel like that's how the general like layout of what the Bill of Rights and everything was supposed to be, because there wasn't near as many people at the time. There was very small communities. So you trusted the people that you trusted, and you trusted those people for specific reasons, right? Whether because you knew them, because they were good speakers, whatever it was, they were in your locality. So you like trusted them because you either saw their work ethic or talk to them in the bar all the time, or this, that, or the other. And then those people ended up becoming, pinnacles of your fucking your city, or like literal like shining lights of your village. They're like, we're sending this guy because we think he's the best representation of us, or we go to this guy when we have questions because he seems to have a different idea of the world than I do, and I respect his opinions or her opinions or whatever it is. Like it became one of those things because that's how it was originally meant, because that's how people oriented themselves. That's how they put themselves in line with the other people in their peer group. There's people that are obvious leaders that show up and do things that other people just don't do, and people respect them for it. And I'm not saying that's us by any means, but I think there's also like like, what's the word? Familiarity, when you get to sit up here like we do and talk every week about what we feel on different political ideologies, or what we feel on different news situations, or us just, fucking last week, we barely touched on any actual relevant news. Like, we had a couple, but for the most part, we were sitting there bullshitting for the first half an hour about the military. Like, and people were like, oh, this is like I had a couple messages were like, oh, it was kind of nice to just hear you guys bullshit about the military. You guys have done it a couple times the last couple weeks, but it's kind of nice to hear you guys go off of something other than current events. And then I also got other messages like, oh, you guys turned into a fucking Twitter commentary podcast. And I was like, I'll take that, like whatever. Like, sometimes it's funny to fucking talk about. That shit cracks me up. And I'm not here to be, the voice of reason. I'm just calling shit how I see it, and that's it.
Yeah,
and I'm a bullshitter, so I'm gonna bullshit half this fucking thing anyways.
Well, it's like we're not like lying. Like, I think the thing is like, we're not lying to anyone. Now, we might get things wrong. We might get plenty of things wrong.
Oh, probably a shit ton.
If I listened to like a podcast like 3 months ago, like I'll probably be like, damn, I was an idiot. but
we'll probably listen to our last week's episode and be like, damn, I was an idiot.
But like, we're not, at least I'm not like intentionally lying. And I think at least like with the rise of like the internet and social media and stuff like that, like that's where people, like, things are becoming a lot more personable. Like, people they actually get to know their host and who they listen to and stuff, and that it's a lot more personal now. I'm not saying that every podcast out there is not putting on a show or acting or whatever, maybe they are, but they at least have to present themselves like they are personable. And that, I think that's where you see, like, that's what's amazing to me, dude, is like this whole facade back when I was like growing up, and you're like looking up at like our president and our leaders, where you're like, yeah, I don't agree with them. I think this is kind of wrong, but they're not stupid, and they're not like evil.
Yeah, they're there for a reason.
They're there. They got there for a reason. I can't argue against that. And then nowadays you look at like, Joe Biden's probably the best example, but even like Kamala Harris, you look at her and there's just no personality. She is like literally the definition of a lizard person. Will just form into anything she needs to say and get whatever vote and whatever she needs to do to get done. And there's nothing there. There's no like perspective. There's no thought. She's just saying what she needs to say to get by. Yeah. And that's it. There's no personality. And it's never been so obvious before.
And then when they're put in positions to talk on long form, like her with Charlemagne, they clearly have nothing going on. Like they can't even force the personality. Like they can't even force, like, it's like her whole thing on when she was on that. It was a little, I don't remember what interview it was, but the interview where she laughed about like smoking weed and listening to Snoop Dogg.
Tupac.
Or was it Tupac? And it was, whoever it was. But at the same time, it was like that album didn't even come out yet or something like that. And like it was like such a blatant lie. Like it was such a blatant lie. And it was either a lie on when she did it, on when she was smoking weed and doing it, or that she never smoked weed. And so she was making something up. And then, with the whole thing with Charlemagne, she's like, don't run Republican talking points. And they tried to end the interview early. And she was like, I can't, or the aide was like, oh, we can't hear you. We're having technical difficulties. And even Charlemagne was sitting there like, no, you can hear me just fine. You guys see how this is. And then she had to sit there and be like, no, I can hear you just fine. And they still just have nothing. There's just nothing there, except when they have they're very good at their 2-minute bits on a primary stage or under the lights, for a, thought out interview where they got all the questions before and they can prep,
like a 60 minutes would be the longest thing they would do.
And
it's
that
all
entire
scripted.
thing, it's all scripted and prepped by other people that aren't even them. This is what you should say. And, like, this is what we're going to say up here, because this will appeal to this base and this will also appeal to this base. And if we throw them both in there, they'll both, under these statistics, they'll both fucking come out thinking that you're for this person and this person, even though when you get into office, you have no real power and won't really do anything. And when you do it, you'll probably make a fool of yourself because you have no personality.
Yeah, I think the same thing with like Justin Trudeau. I think he has almost no.
Him running out of the fucking assembly the other day after calling the Jewish lady a Nazi. That was hilarious. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, there was another guy too that, some conservative dude was like, my grandfather was Jewish or whatever, was killed by the Nazis or something. No, he fought the Nazis. That's what he did. He fought the Nazis. And, which I was like, damn, dude, Canada was in World War II. Yeah, I don't remember that.
Well, and then they say that they were super important in World War II, but
they might have been, dude. But I went to public school, and all I know is America was the good guys. We showed up and kicked ass. That's all I know.
Yeah, and how much does Canada really do?
Yeah, but it's just really funny when these people get exposed, and I think that's one of the reasons, at least on a personal level, why people love Donald Trump so much, because he was just bullshitting. He just went up there. Yeah, kind of anyone you
expected.
You kind of watch him and be like, he's bullshitting, but he's good at it. It's good. It's
fun to watch.
Yeah. He's a personality, and he sticks to his personality, and it is fun to watch. And
it's a personality. He can keep up with it.
Yeah, he can just go off the fly. I think he's mastered the craft of just winging it. He's the best at just winging it, whatever comes his way. Even if it's it's going to be a hostile interview, he's ready. He's ready. Yeah. He's going.
He already knows it's going to be a hostile interview. These other people, they'll go into an interview and just are so oblivious to it being hostile that they don't know how to answer the questions, and then it just gets ended early or something like that. And it's they have no idea, and he will go right in there and just fucking, but that's just what you guys say. That's just what you guys say.
He's like, you're a liar and you're a nasty woman. Just say something crazy. And Bush, dude, these reporters,
there's another one.
He would just get a little bit of pushback. It's not even that serious amount of pushback.
And he would get upset.
He would get upset, or you could tell he gets uncomfortable. He didn't have a very good answer. When they're asking him, I think this was toward the end of his second presidency, and they're asking him about weapons of mass destruction, and there was no evidence of it. He said something awkward, and it didn't make sense to the response. And it was just like, oh, you fucking piece of shit. And these people just get exposed. They weren't ready for and the question really wasn't that bad. It was kind of a milquetoast, hey, where's those weapons at type thing. And he didn't have an answer for it. And it's just watching these people get up there and just totally collapse under any sort of pushback was honestly probably the most eye-opening thing to me.
Well, I think when we were talking about the personal, the personable level is when you're a kid and you're growing up and you're you look up to it different adults, constantly. You hear your parents bitching about bosses and stuff, but you're from my parents, they were oh, they're in this kind of they're in that position for a reason. There was always that, whether it was their boss, the mayor, the cops, or things like that, they were in this position for a reason. That's just kind of how the order of things were. And then when you grow up and you're sitting there, and I honestly believe it, a lot of it had to do with the Marine Corps, but a lot of mine also had to do with high school, where I was in some parts of public school where I was just I'm 12 years old and I think I'm smarter than my teacher. And it's not because like I have this inflated confidence at that point in time.
It's because
it
they're
was just
so
like,
unimpressive.
they were so unimpressive that I legitimately believed that I was in at least a few areas smarter than this 45-year-old adult. And that was insane. And then growing up, and especially getting to high school, and I sent this in our group chat with Keaton Cole, Tower King Cole, or no, I sent this, it was a tweet that I posted when we were talking to Freebird about schooling and like you not knowing shit about the science questions or whatever. And I was like, I can't really talk a whole lot because at my high school, my first high school that I went to, they wouldn't assign us homework because the kids aren't going to do it anyways. And, you know, the kids were predominantly Hispanic and Black. And there was literally, I think 4 or 5 white kids in my first high school when I was first going there. And it was me and my buddy who were both freshmen, like a senior and then like a junior and a sophomore. And it was just wild. It wasn't wild to me, but like when I tell people that, it's like surprising to them. But at the same time, it was just like, first, they totally discounted the kids that were there. You know, like I was in AP classes and my AP teachers were telling me that. So these kids had like maybe not an above average intelligence, but they should have had an above average intelligence and at least tested into the programs that were universally set at the state level. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this, if you're an AP at any public high school in Arizona, you're an AP at any other public high school in Arizona. And we weren't getting it at all. And then some of the things that they were teaching us, I was like, I learned this in 7th grade. Like, what are we doing here? This is supposed to be algebra 3-4. I was doing this shit way back there. And at another ghetto middle school, like I was just like, what the fuck? And then I finally get to my follow-ons, or the following high school that I went to for my junior, senior year. And even and it was a much better school, a lot better academics. They had an IB program, which was like international baccalaureate. It gives you help into getting into IB colleges, things like that. Very highly rated because that's what I needed. I needed the challenge. That was kind of like why I got moved into that district. But anyways, that's like where I went. And I had an English teacher that was arguing with me about legalizing marijuana. It's like, first in my head, it was instantly bad. Well, it was legalizing marijuana and why the SB 1070 bill was against the Constitution. She was a right-wing Italian Republican, like very Italian, conservative, and how SB 10, I wore a legalized marijuana shirt in high school. And then we were talking about the SB 1070 bill, which was, you know, basically they could stop you at any point, depending on the color of skin or on any characteristic that they wanted to, and demand 3 forms of identification from you. And growing up where I came from, that was pretty fucking bad because, you know, how many, like I didn't carry my fucking school ID with me. I didn't have to worry about it. That's honestly something that I never had to worry about. You know, I was a fucking blonde-haired, blue-eyed white kid. But when I was in the fucking car with my 3 Hispanic buddies, and 2 of them barely spoke broken English, we all understood because you grow up with it, but like spoke broken English, and you get stopped on the freeway, you know, at 15 years old, and, you know, the driver's 16, and everybody in the car gets asked for their forms of identification except you. It's like, oh, maybe this is a little racist. You know, like this might be a little, yeah, this is a little racist. So she's sitting there talking about something that she has no understanding of. And she's supposed to be this, you know, incredible teacher that teaches all the top students in the school for this AP English class. And English was usually held to a little bit higher of a standard throughout my high school career. I don't know why, but like, it's like the philosophical, the smart, the intelligent are really good at their English classes. And then, you know, the weirdos are good at math. That's kind of how it was taken, but you know, and that's how it was. And it was just like, she was so unimpressive in her arguments, and I was 17 years old. I was like, what? I shouldn't be. I know, like the other kids, you know, regardless of if they had any idea Like I won that day when we talked about when we had that exchange. I won, and I shouldn't be winning, not because like you should just be more impressive. And the reason why I brought that up was because when you go further on, and then when I joined the military, it was like I still had that belief, like I would still defend it. Like these people are in positions for a reason. They have experience that I don't have. Da 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 da. And then when we would get into some shit, and I was like, they probably deal with pressure a lot better than I do, because some of these staff sergeants and gunnery sergeants have been to war. And then they don't. And it's like, dude, how the fuck did you act in war? How did you? Because like, there's no way, if you're acting about this way for a fucking gear layout for a phasmo inspection, how did you act in like bullets? And I get that they're different and people react differently to different situations, but like, it's just another stressor. And you don't even have to do anything because I'm here. So get the fuck off my back. Let me do my job and go sit in your office like you're supposed to. Like, and it was just so, and the further you go up, the more unimpressive people are, like in any situation. I mean, I feel like I fall into that trap now with the job I'm at now. The more I sit there and talk to people about strategy and structure and accountability and how we're going from place to place and what we're doing and efficiency and things like that, these words don't mean shit to them. And that's exact. If I got to sit down and talk to some of these politicians, like I feel like I would come out feeling the same way, because even just watching their interviews with people that are feeding them answers, they can't answer correctly, or they give half answers.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, let's face it, we're kind of like, we spent, I don't know, 18, 19 years of our lives basically in the government system. I mean, we've public school and then to the military, and the whole time we're taught that these are the authorities, we're supposed to respect them, they know what they're talking about, we're here to learn or be led by them or whatever. And like the whole time, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always those exceptions out there. We can all name exceptions. Everyone always has that really cool teacher in high school that was their favorite teacher. They actually learned something. They were personable. They got along with them. That exists for sure. And same thing in the Marine Corps. But the majority overall, it's very unimpressive, it's just not there. People. And but it's so hard for you to wrap your head around that like we're being ran by idiots.
And at the same time, you're sitting there bullshitting too, right? Because you don't know fucking shit, because the people ahead of you don't know fucking shit. So you're sitting there bullshitting, and then you start to see yourself move up, and you're like, I'm fucking bullshitting.
Yeah.
And you're like, and that's when you realize, like, oh my God, everybody's just bullshitting. Like everybody is just a bullshitter. And there's people that are good at bullshitting, and then there aren't. And then there's a few people that like can figure it out on the fly. And I try to be the person that figures it out on the fly. And I think I'm pretty damn good at it. But like, I'm just bullshitting most of the time. I was doing this
lie.
Yeah, just confidently lie, and then figure out how to make it fill into the lie so that the lie becomes the truth.
Don't stretch your lie too far, but just lie enough to get away and move on.
And then you realize that these other people, they didn't figure out that part. They just lie and got to a part where they were like, you're the person in charge. And they're like, oh, fuck. And then they just continue to lie, and they don't even try to figure it out, because they're like, I've been lying the whole time. So like, I can just continue to lie. And it's like, yeah, but now there's people below you that are a lot better at lying than you are, or bullshitting than you are, because it's not really lying. It's like bullshitting. Can't bullshit a bullshitter, especially when it's a better bullshitter. And I just think our generation has come up in the land of bullshitting to the max, and we're like, yeah, we can call that shit out pretty easily.
Yeah, and there's so many people that are so disincentivized and so like just not have no like a lot of not a lot of faith in the system.
Yeah,
now
for good reason.
Yeah, I mean, we're the generation of like, everyone go to college. Now you have a shit ton of debt. All of our wars have been based on like, there's not that strong, like, even if people that kind of buy into like the whole military and this was for the right reasons, and even though maybe the war wasn't good, we went and fought the good idea. And that's not kind of the mentality with like Iraq and Afghanistan veterans. It's kind of like, I don't know,
Did a
man.
whole
It
lot
kinda
of bullshit.
kind of seems a little bullshit to me. And it's all I mean, I don't know, maybe it's sort of kind of like Vietnam is kind of like what Afghanistan and Iraq is
Yeah.
we're like, but not completely hated by your society when you came back. but
Yeah.
but there's just not a lot to be proud of with what is presented. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people are just becoming completely just like, this is bullshit, we were lied, everything we were brought up on. And I think it's piece by piece, it's just falling apart. And I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily, where there's I mean, it's a good thing, I think, in realizing the truth, but at the same time, these are like the cultural foundations of our life. Like, I grew up in a veteran family. Like, this is something we were supposed to be proud of. This is something that this meant you were a man. Like, you served, you did the thing that most people in America can't and choose not to do. And when those like pillars of something that's supposed to be like held up in very hard regard start falling over, I don't know. Like,
Dude,
I feel
I
like
mean, how long did it take you to break your dad from the mold? Like, it didn't take a lot. It took 2 years out of his 50+ year life to really break the mold. Like, hey, maybe everything we were told about all this stuff wasn't fucking the
well,
best.
I think with most people, it's just they talk in platitudes, where they just say things as in like, what sounds good. Like, well, we went there, we kicked ass, that dude was a bad guy, and we left. And like, a lot of people, like most people in society, aren't, I don't think, very educated or understand exactly even what the wars were about. Like, I don't think I
Yeah.
could ask probably everyone in my town what was the Desert Storm about, and only like Desert Storm veterans would be the ones that could kind of give you an idea of what it was about. So people just
Yeah.
kind of just assumed, because the news was telling them this was good, we kicked ass, we beat this bad guy, we saved these people, whatever they need to say.
Mhm.
And people just kind of walk around thinking like, oh, that was a good thing to do. And then when you just read like, I don't know, an article or a page, and you find out like, holy shit,
You read
dude,
one memo from Rumsfeld in the Afghanistan papers, you're just like, oh, I guess that's the Afghanistan and Iraq war. But still, even with Desert Storm, like the equivalent of that, you're just like, oh, it literally took a memo. Like, it literally takes me a memo to shoot over to somebody, and they'll be like, oh shit, I didn't even know that. And I was like, yeah, that's Donald Rumsfeld. Like,
yeah, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. And I think, there's a lot of people that still kind of have faith in those traditions, with at least the history and like, what was taught to us, especially in like public school and in our own culture itself, is like, we have a country to be very, very proud of for a lot of things. And there is some things out there, like a lot of things I would say that you can be proud of for this country. And I think that, but with a lot of like the things that are attached to institutions, like these legacy institutions, like universities, media is big one, the political system, the military, like all these things are kind of falling apart, because the mask is dropping. You're really seeing what's going on. And the culture war is not helping at all, because like they're trying to wokeify like everything, and there's a whole part of this country that's just not down with that. And I don't know, the whole like that, to me, it just seems like the whole thing that was keeping us together, that we could call ourselves like, oh, we're Americans, red, white, and blue. That whole mentality is kind of just coming down. And I don't know what. This is why I think sometime, I don't know when, but I think the United States might not be the United States anymore. And I think I think it happens more from a cultural standpoint, where people just don't recognize these things as important or honorable as they used to. And hell, people might even start, like us, spite the system that we thought was very, very good, or something that we wanted to do and to become a man. But now we're, very spiteful towards.
yeah. And I mean, I think rightfully so. I don't think you should do everything in your life through spite, but at the same time, it's like, well, there's a lot of people that live out of spite. Like, they like So whatever gets you by day to day, but it's just one of those things where shit gets fucking crazy, and the lies that you've been told your entire life, you start realizing one by one and peeling back the layers, and it gets really easy to just be like, oh, that's cool, fuck this, like I don't care. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about was the whole Canada shit, trying to shut down Bitcoin addresses and shit like that. Like that was fucking wild. And it's the can't stop the signal. Like you're not going to be able to fucking stop it, no matter how much you want to try.
There was a CEO that owns an exchange, and he said
Jack Russell or Will Russell or something like that.
You might be right. I'm terrible with names. I can't remember, but I think I retweeted it. But basically he said, if you are worried about the government taking your money, you need to get your Bitcoin off the exchanges. Yeah. And immediately, because of what they're doing in Canada. And because he also said that he would have to if he got told, because he's an exchange. And he was sitting there like, yep, that's true, but just go ahead and take them off. Hey, buddy, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry I'm late.
No, you're good, man. Thanks for coming on.
There we go. Is that coming through the microphone now?
Yeah, you are.
Cool. Sorry.
Well,
I wouldn't have been able to join at 7 Central Time anyway, so that's my bad. Sorry, guys.
No, you're fine. We are always fucked up on the time zone, so we kind of just assumed that's what happened. So you guys were
right this time. I was wrong. So,
well, I appreciate you coming on. We got Reed, the host of the Naturalist Capitalist podcast. I'm 3 beers deep, so excuse my alliteration. It's going to be fucked up when I speak.
No,
what's up, dude?
Not much. I just finished a week of skiing at Park City with my brothers, so it's been a fun week. Nice. Yeah,
that's fucking awesome.
You guys ski or snowboard? Or
I snowboard. Typo snowboarded a few times. We you went up to what's it called in fucking Big Bear, right? You went up to Big Bear
in California.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've never skied in California yet, but probably won't now unless things drastically change. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
For sure. Yeah. Dude, you seem like you've been kind of a busy man, dude.
Dude, it's been insane. I'm booked like through the middle of March right now. Hopefully I don't fuck all my other appearances up as bad as this one, but I'll be yeah, it's been crazy. It's been thing after thing after thing after I went on Fox News. So
I actually wanted to ask you, what is that like? What is it like being on cable TV?
Apparently I don't look it, and I did watch myself over again, and I think I hit it pretty well, but I was fucking terrified. I mean, my heart was just pounding out of my chest uncontrollably, and I couldn't see anything. I'm just sitting in a chair with these bright lights on me, staring at a TV camera. And then I had the earpiece in, and I talked with the producer, and she said, all right, we'll have you on in 30 seconds. So, or first she said, we'll have you on in 7 minutes. So I'm just sitting there, and I can't even hear like what's being said on the TV yet. And then the audio comes in for the TV after a little bit. And so I'm trying to like get my heart rate normalized, bring it down a little bit. I'm like, okay, here we go. Okay, I got this. Here we go. And then she comes over the earpiece again. Okay, 30 seconds. And then my heart rate just went right back to the roof again.
You're like, you shouldn't have told me.
It's the anticipation that's probably killing you, dude.
And dude, my heart was beating so hard. I could hear it and I could feel it. And I was like, oh no, am I going to be able to talk when I have to start saying something? And then luckily, once I started talking, it was fine. And then when it was over so fast, and I was like, I don't know why I was so nervous, because the thing is, on TV, if you say something outlandish, you don't have to back any of it up, because it's just like you throw it. Like I could have been like, Joe Biden molested my nephew and there are aliens on Pluto. And then like, she would have been like, okay, moving on to the next thing. We wanted to ask you about whatever. And, if you're on a podcast, if you say something like that, they're gonna be like, whoa, hold on. What do you mean?
Let's go into that.
Why do you think that? And, you don't have that on TV. So you can kind of just, I don't know why I was so nervous, but yeah, it was horrifying, but went well, I think. So
yeah, I just wanted to invite you on so I can tell my parents I had someone from Fox News on.
There you go. It's just discount Fox News though. It's just Fox Business. So
Yeah,
that's
it's just the Fox Business.
Oh man, dude,
That's hilarious.
So-
Go ahead, Typo.
I was gonna ask you. So there is like, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of what's going on in Canada, and
He has
but there's
no
al-
idea actually. He's like,
Yeah,
nah,
yeah,
yeah,
is it something with
I'm
trucks
just-
or something?
But there's a lot of rumors going around with it, like possibly happening here in America. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've heard anything, but do you think like something like this could happen in America?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the same, just rumors.
Yeah.
What I have heard is that it's going to start in Barstow, California on the 23rd. And then I think they're going to get to Washington, D.C. the first week of March sometime. That's all I know. And I mean, so they won't be coming through my state. And then I also don't own my truck. You know, I work for a company, so I doubt I'll have any part in it. But I don't hear like anything. I mean, the truckers aren't talking about it all, or
Okay.
you know, at the truck stops, I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything on the CB. It's all on social media. So I'm probably not in the loop much more than you guys are. I'm part of a Telegram group now, but it's mostly brainstorming that I see. You know, it's just like, what if we did this? What if? So I'm just trying to inject my opinion as to what we should do.
Well,
into the
you've been one
conversation.
that from the beginning, you kind of said like, if it happens in the United States, it's really fucking bad.
Yeah. I mean, if there's just a convoy to DC, you know, it kind of depends on how many trucks go, but
Right.
that wouldn't be that catastrophic. It's if it's like Canada where you've got them, you know, on the border stopping stuff from coming over. And if they are in like every city, because they're in like every province of Canada, you know, shutting down the capital cities, where it's just different here, you know, like, I mean, I'm in Utah and I just went out to eat downtown Salt Lake City, no mask, no one was wearing masks, didn't have to show a vaccine passport to go in. I haven't been vaccinated at all. And I haven't worn a mask in over a year unless I'm on an airplane. So it's just a little bit different. So like if you throw this huge, you know, this huge protest nationwide down here, people are going to be like, what are you protesting about? You know, like it's a little bit different.
People in Florida will be like, no, we're good. Like,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of like, you kind of have to have a little bit of the empathy of the public behind you when you have this type of protest. So, for example, after George Floyd's death, there was a huge amount of compassion from everybody toward, you know, the idea that police get away with murder and shouldn't be able to. Like even right wingers like Steven Crowder and people were saying like, you know, I support the police, but this is bad. And then what did they do with it? They fucking, you know, started burning down Arby's and screaming at white people in restaurants that they weren't anti-racist enough. So it's like, that wasn't, you know, that wasn't the right way to do it. So I think if it happens here, it should be very targeted, you know, like if you go to DC, like that's cool. And then, you know, if you want to stop taking loads to San Francisco or LA or New York City, actually Washington, DC is lifting its vaccine passport restriction, but I think New York and
New York just like doubled down.
Yeah. There's some retarded cities that aren't going to do anything. So yeah, I mean, if you want to like, if those cities want to protest and they want to drive trucks downtown and block everything up and say, fuck you, we're doing this until you lift this.
You can't do it in the middle of Utah.
Yeah. I mean, like the people who've moved beyond this, like, you know, just let them move beyond it basically.
Yeah.
You know how people can't nuance, you know, on especially on Twitter. So.
Oh my God, dude, that's the thing. It's like, you know, I think when we first started, we caught a lot of traction because when we first started our podcast, it was 2019 Typo, I think, somewhere around there. And we started talking about like the Boogaloo because that was like, you know, huge news right at that time. The Boogaloo this, the Boogaloo that. And we were sitting there like, yeah, but you can't just like go kill cops. Like you can't just like dome rock cops in their car. Like that's not, you're not gonna get what you want. Like I get what you're saying, but like you're just going to be the bad guy. And then people started doing it and they were the bad guy. And like majority of people thought that they were the bad guy. And there's no way to, and it was with the George Floyd thing when they burned down the fucking police, the police office,
that was like,
the precinct. Everybody was like, yeah, continue to do that. And then they like moved on to, you know, storefronts, people's places of work, things like that had nothing to do with anything. And it was like, well, now I think you guys are, you know, shitbags and I want nothing to do with you. And it's kind of the same situation where if you go downtown, like here in Phoenix, and all the truckers just go down there and everybody's going to be like, yo, bro, like most of us don't give a shit about any of the vaccine mandates. Most of us are fighting our employers for it, or fighting our employers against it already. Like the big corporations at the very minimum, because everybody else doesn't give a shit. All the small businesses went back to normal fucking business hours and business as usual, you know, 2 months after the first lockdowns. That it's like you're going to do more harm than good when you do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the whole point of a protest shouldn't be that you feel justified in doing it. The whole point of the protest should be to get results, right? I mean, that's at least how I look at it. So I made this point on my podcast and somehow this video didn't get taken down, but I was saying like, you could make an argument that Ted Kaczynski was justified in what he did. You could make that argument. I'm not saying I don't think he was, for the record, like, you know, bombing people.
You're gonna get swatted now because the last person that talked about Ted Kaczynski in a positive light on our podcast got swatted. So
okay. But then like some people have even made the case that like Timothy McVeigh didn't know that there were children in the building in Oklahoma City, and that through his own actions, from, you know, his perspective, he was actually justified because he thought there were only ATF agents and FBI agents in the building. It's like, okay, but it doesn't matter. Like, even if he was justified in what he did, look at the backlash of what he did, you know, like that's what I care about. Like, I don't think there was anything wrong with January 6th. I think it was hilarious, if anything. Yeah. But did it accomplish anything that anyone there wanted to forward? Like, of course not. It just backfired. It gave them more of an opportunity to push authoritarian legislation and demonize all right wingers. It was just the complete opposite reaction. So if you shut down cities and dry up supply lines and, you know, empty the shelves of grocery stores in places where none of this shit is happening that you're protesting, you're not going to gain the respect or the support of regular people. They're just going to be like, dude, fuck you. Why are you blocking my street and drying up my grocery store? I haven't had to wear a mask in a year. I haven't, you know, I'm not vaccinated, whatever. So I just hope whatever happens ends up being very specific in what they want, and then also very targeted. Because that's the other thing. Like, I actually I was unemployed from January till June of 2020. So I was living about 6 hours away from Denver. So I figured, oh, what the hell? I'll go check out one of these protests to see what's going on. And I went there, and there were, I don't know how many 100 people were there, but I went around with a sign that said "End qualified immunity, end civil asset forfeiture, demilitarize the police." And I talked with like, I don't know, 100 people probably. None of them knew what any of those things were. And they didn't know about no-knock raids. They didn't know that police forces get like $100 billion a year from the federal government around the country. They didn't know any of it. So they're out there screaming no justice, no peace, but they have no idea what justice means so they can have peace. So and just in case anyone doesn't know my position on Canada, I've been very impressed with the truckers in Canada because they've been extremely clear about what they want, and they've taken the problem where the problem is. They've taken it to Ottawa, and they've taken it to the capital cities. You know, they're not screaming at farmers in the middle of nowhere or something. They are really trying to make life hell for the people who have made life hell for them. And they've been very obvious, like, if you drop these mandates, we will go home. You know, like, imagine if Black Lives Matter had said, like, if you get rid of qualified immunity and no knock raids, we'll go home. Like, how much differently that would have looked. But no one had any fucking clue what they wanted. So whatever goes on here, it needs to be done the same way. Like, take it to the people who have destroyed your lives and be very clear about what you want. And then if they give it to you, go home. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew anything. I mean, this was a couple years back now, like 2019, when the Hong Kong protests were going on. That was something that I learned about the protesters there, is they were very, very clear about what their demands were, and they laid them out. There was like 4 or 5 of them that they wanted, and they were really smart and kind of ninja-like with their with their like protest and what they were doing. But then that, like you said, like, yeah, there was just no like central message from Black Lives Matter besides like in racism, like, okay, like in police brutality. And it's like, okay, everyone's against police brutality, like no one wants that. And I think that's what's really cool about this Canada thing, is like their demands is like, it's very simple in the mandates. There's no way to go around it. Like, I know they're trying to frame them as like Nazis, like they always do, but like it's very, very clear. There's not that much violence that I've seen. I actually haven't really seen any besides the police today. And
there's been none. I mean, there's not been. There were reports of property destruction. There's been zero evidence of it. You know, like all the videos I've seen, they're even like shoveling the sidewalks and picking up all their own trash. And they've
cleaning
created
the
their
statues.
they've created their own soup kitchen, and they're like, they have bouncy houses and they're dancing and singing, and it's just like,
it's super Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. It's super gay and happy, like Canada.
You know, well, and the thing is, like, people are, especially in the United States, people are acting like these are you know, hillbilly truckers from the outskirts of Canada, and it's like the majority of these guys are fucking fully vaccinated, or at least have the first 2 doses of whatever fucking vaccination that they had, and they're just like, yeah, we're done. You're just going to keep prolonging this and change my vaccination status every 6 months. Like, we're not doing this anymore. And that's one of my biggest things, is exactly what you said. Like, things need to be way more targeted. Things need to be way more clear. And it just really hasn't been, whether it's libertarians or fucking Marxists. Like, they just, it doesn't matter one way or the other. We talk in like these broad strokes, and it's like, no, say what you want, say what you need, and then be about it and do it exactly to the T. Because once you have to solidify your position. If you don't, and you leave it open in ambiguity, then everything's fucked. Like, everybody, people are going to take it however, whatever way that they want. And when you have those, you know, people that are kind of outside of the grid, that are going out with you or whatever and saying outlandish things that aren't focusing on what the point is, you have a responsibility that if you're in the position to be able to like negate that and say like, no, that's not what we're about these specific things, then you say it. You don't say, well, they're not really a part of us, I don't know who they are. It's just like, no, this is what we're about, this is what we want, and these are the demands, and this is how we want to get there. And that's how it should be constantly, and it should be consistent all across the board. And we just haven't really seen that, especially in the United States, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on, because with the trucker thing, it seems hopefully it's targeted like that. And you know, I think a lot of the truckers, even when they've had their strikes before in the past, truckers have a very long history of strikes in the United States.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times they're very succinct and very punctual with what they want. You know, they're on point with what they want. And I don't know if they've always gotten it, but you know, for the most part, at least everybody has an idea of what, or a very specific idea of what they wanted and what they were trying to get, and for the most part supported them in doing so.
Do you guys know about our historical dealings with truck convoys? Have you ever heard about, like, do you know the movie Convoy and the song Convoy about with the rubber duck or whatever?
Come on and join our convoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
This here's a rubber duck. We're about to put the hammer down.
Exactly. All the speed limits on the interstates used to be 55 miles per hour, and it was impossible to make any money because you just couldn't get anywhere in a timely fashion. So what truckers would do is, on the interstates, they would just form these convoys of like 100 trucks, and they would just go like 80 miles per hour. And what are you going to do if you're a cop, or even if you're 10 cops, when 100 trucks come screaming down at 80 miles per hour? And so then whenever you get to, you know, where you got to break off, you just break off, and then more people join in. But this was a thing they did. This was their form of protest. They would just all group together and just haul ass across the country, and there was
so
no way
badass.
to stop them. Yeah.
That's actually like one of the most badass stories of American history I've heard.
Yeah, and then sure enough, the I don't know if that was the only factor. I'm sure there were others too, but eventually the speed limits got lifted, so
Yeah.
it's still that way in California though. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Truck, I mean, you can go 70 if you're in a car, but if you're in a truck, you got to go 55. And I didn't know that the first time I went into California. I was just coming out of Nevada, and I think the speed limit's 80 right there, even for trucks. So I was just hauling, and we got to this hill, and I was just hauling past all these trucks. I was like, what is going on here? I must be missing something. And then I realized, like, oh shit, because I saw I had missed the first speed limit sign that said 55 truck or whatever. I was like, so once you're in California, when you get back to Arizona or Nevada or whatever, it's just like, finally, and then you can just hammer down again. But yeah.
No, I don't know everything, or I know very little about the trucking industry, but I'm assuming they are like very important for our economy. Like I feel like that's how most things get anywhere in the country is through trucks. Is that right?
Yeah, the United States, I believe, is the most dependent on trucks out of every country in the world. A lot of other countries use trains and boats a lot more than we do. Have you ever heard of the Jones Act?
Yeah.
Do you know much about it? Or
I do not know anything about it.
Yeah, so the way the Jones Act works, this was passed, I think 100 years ago last year. It was a protectionist policy to try to boost America's shipping economy, and only Jones Act approved ships. So they're like under a certain union and they follow certain specifications, then they're Jones Act approved. They're the only ones who can port twice in a row in the United States. So if you're not Jones Act approved, you have to port in another country before you can come back to the United States again. So you can't drop half your load in Hawaii and then the other half in California. It's got to all come to California. And then, half of it goes back to Hawaii, even though you boated right on by. So this also affects ships up and down the coast. Like you can't drop half your load in New York and then go down to Georgia and drop the other half. You have to dump all of it in either place. And then we're also such a large country, we're very expansive. So, trucks just move a lot more than ships could anyway. But we don't have nearly as much rail per capita as, places in Europe do. So just way, way more gets transported by truck. But there's this graph showing what'll happen if trucks stop moving. And within like 2 or 3 days, all the fuel from gas stations dries up. Grocery stores start running out of food. Hospitals start running out of medicine. And then, like instant manufacturing starts falling apart. And then after like a couple weeks, then regular manufacturing starts having issues because you don't have parts anymore. All the gas is completely gone by then. The groceries are pretty much completely gone. Everyone who relies on potable drinking water coming from somewhere other than a well or the town water, they're out of luck. Like a couple weeks without trucks running, the United States basically ceases to exist. So it's kind of a big deal.
Fuck yeah.
Is there like a trucker shortage, and how hard or easy is it to become a trucker?
Yeah, there is a trucker shortage, and it's gotten a lot harder. I've been a trucker, or I've only been a trucker for 2 years, but I've had my commercial driver's license for, I think, 9 years now. I got it when I was right before I turned 19. When I got it 9 years ago, it was still pretty hard. There's 3 tests you have to take. You have to take a written test, and then you have to do a pre-trip, which is just walking around the entire truck. And you have to point out, it's like 300, I think it's like 300 different things, or 200. It's been a while since I've done it, but it's a ton of different things. And you have to actually touch them with your hand and explain what they are and prove that they're in good working condition. So like when you're going through your brake system, like, okay, My slack adjusters are adjusted properly. I'm looking at the knuckle of my, where it's connected to my wheel here, and I'm making sure my brake shoe has enough, pad left on it, and I need at least a 1/4 inch of pad, and I could see it right here. And so you just have to do that with like everything: the engine, the suspension, the brakes, the transmission, just absolutely everything. And that's what everyone fails. Like they only let you miss like 5 things out of however many 100 things there are. And then you have to do a skills test after that, which is, so there's really 4 parts if you include the written test. After you pass the pre-trip, you have to do a skills test where you have to alley dock the truck, and then you have to do a couple other parking exercises, and then you go for a road test. When I took my test, everything was pretty much still manual transmission. It's slowly becoming more automatic transmissions. I still drive a manual, but a lot of the new guys aren't even testing in manual trucks anymore. They're just doing it in automatics. But when I took the test, like you couldn't freewheel the truck for more than a length of the truck. You had to have it in gear all the time. If you touched a curb, you fail. So it's a very hard test to pass, but now they're trying to make it so that you have to go to truck driving school in order to get your license, which I didn't do that. I just learned how to drive after hours working at a lumber yard. The guys would take me out for drives, and I'd practice parking it in the yard or whatever. And then they just took me for my test and I passed. Truck driving school, I think it takes like a month, and you have to pay like $6,000 for it. So they're making it way harder to get your license. And then the guys who are going through driving school, they're terrible. Like every driver who's hitting the road now, they're absolutely awful. And it's yeah, I don't know, like more and more unqualified people keep getting pushed through by these big trucking companies. I guess they're able to push them through without actually certifying them somehow. I don't really know how that works. My friend Tommy Salmons is a little bit more educated on that subject, but big companies like Swift and Schneider, the big dogs, they're getting a lot of people on the road who I don't think actually went through all the training they were supposed to. And it's obvious when you're driving next to them. They don't speak any English, first of all. And, if you're driving in America where all the road signs are in English, that's kind of an important qualifier. And then they also can't back up, and they can't drive either. So, I mean, there's just, I don't know how they got there, but the trucker shortage is real. They've taken, I think, 80,000 truck drivers off the road in the last 2 years through new drug testing requirements. So they have this new system called the clearinghouse system, which before, if you got fired because you failed a drug test, you could get a job at a different company. But now they've made that loophole much harder to get through. So if you fail a drug test somewhere, it's just universally known through this system that you failed a drug test. So it's very hard to get a job anywhere.
This system ran by like a government agency?
Yeah, by I think by the Department of Transportation.
Sounds like it.
But that's been 2019 and 2020. It took like those 80,000 truckers off the road, which is of course when truck driving became one of the most essential businesses, even though it already was like just tenfold throughout that entire time. Which is so funny because 2 years ago we were heroes. We were the ones. Same with the medical workers. Like medical workers and truckers are the two the two occupations that were most praised in early 2020, and now they're the two that are the most fucked over. Like they're I mean, the mandate stuck for the medical workers in the United States. The one that got thrown out for employee, if you have over 100 employees, you have to vaccinate your workers. That's stuck for the medical workers, and a lot of them have quit. And then this new border crossing thing that fucks over truck drivers. So it's just hilarious, that the two groups that you were praising so much have become the number one villains now. And I don't know.
I mean, 2 years ago you had politicians on every TV channel ever just sitting there saying thank you to truck drivers and fucking medical workers in all facets. And now it's like, nope, they're the problem with society. Yeah, they're the
Yeah.
problem with society. Well, and now there's a fucking avocado shortage because somebody got mad, and we're gonna go through an avocado shortage. Did you see that?
I heard something about it, but I've been on vacation, so I haven't really looked into
Yeah.
it too much.
They
But
banned
give me the lowdown.
avocados.
Yeah, they banned avocados from Mexico again. It happened a while ago. It became a meme because there was like 3 guys that got in trouble for they ended up having to serve like 10 years in prison each because they were transporting illegal avocados from Mexico to California, and the California cops caught them or something like that. But yeah, now it's another whole thing. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. The whole thing is insane. The hills people are willing to die on right now, especially politicians. We were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, especially politicians right now. It's not making sense, and they're not arguing to either base anymore. They're trying to find a middle road, and it's probably going to, well, I assume that it's going to backfire in their faces, just because I think at a certain point, especially after the last 2 years, there's not really much either of them can do either way.
No, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what I'm worried about is I think the the powerful people who actually run this country don't care much about right or left or Democrats or Republicans. They tend to use whatever cultural or religious or political forces they can to get whatever they want passed. So, I like to use this example because it's literally the same company, but Raytheon in the early 2000s, they would have been fully supportive of George W. Bush, the whole Project for a New American Century, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, the Patriot Act, because the Patriot Act wasn't just about surveillance, but it was also about centralizing control around the Oval Office. So they would have been 100% behind this. So you had like this kind of radical, like Christian conservative evangelical movement that was pushing a lot of the stuff that these people were behind. And then in like, I don't know, 2012, 2010, somewhere around a decade ago, it started like switching sides. Suddenly Raytheon decided, okay, you know what? We want to be inclusive, and we're going to have gay people work for us and trans people, and we're going to support Black Lives Matter, and we're going to send our executives to, racial appreciation training or whatever. And so now I even saw an ad last year where there was this non-binary person who was working for Raytheon, and Raytheon put it out, saying like, it's so great that we have employees and we let them actually be themselves or whatever. And so you have the same company with the same goals, which is selling weapons to blow people up in the Middle East. And you saw it switch from like the Christian conservative right to the woke retarded left inside of like a decade. And so I'm actually kind of worried it might switch back again, because I feel like the retarded left is running out of its political capital. Because dude, like 3 years ago, no one gave a fuck about transgender people. Like, it just didn't matter. Like, I didn't care at all. And now you have dudes beating women on the swim team by like 40 seconds. And you've got people.
That's how we started this episode.
Oh, that's perfect. Like, you've got people marrying toasters and shit. Like, everything that we used to scoff at the conservatives for, about like, because when gay marriage became legalized, it was like, oh no, they're gonna start marrying dolphins or whatever. And I was like, shut up, it's so stupid. And now it's literally happening. So it
needs to be accepted by society.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, the normal people that are left in the world are getting sick of the progressive bullshit. And it's really like what the normal people tolerate that is allowed to continue. Like the extremists like us, it doesn't really matter what we think. It's when the soccer moms and like the regular working dads get upset about shit, that's when you actually see things change, because they run the world. And I think you're gonna see this progressive bullshit kind of dry up, just like the conservative, like hard right Christian evangelical movement lost its steam by like 2008. People are just like, this is fucking stupid. Like, I don't care about Harry Potter books, and the war in Iraq was a bad idea. I don't care about video games with violence in them, or hard rock songs or whatever, or gay people. Like, it just doesn't matter. I don't care. So then it swung the other way, and now it's getting so ridiculous in the opposite direction. I think we could see it swing back. And I think specifically like this election and then 2024, you're going to see so many people who haven't voted before or who didn't really care. They're so angry now because they lost their job, or they see their daughter competing with a dude or whatever, and they're like, fuck you, I'm voting Republican. I don't even care. Like, I don't even like the Republicans, but I'm just fucking voting for them. And some of that sounds good to me. Like, I'm sick of the Democrats too. They're so retarded. But I think you're going to see a lot of Dan Crenshaws get elected. Like, there's not going to be any vetting. And then Raytheon is still going to win. Like, they'll be like, okay, like, we're running out of this shit. We're going to switch over to this again. And, we'll get behind the Crenshaws. And, oh, dude, yeah.
And I've been saying this for a while. It's not so much like I very much see a swing back to the right. But every time we've swung back to the left or swung back to the right, it's gotten 10 times worse than it was the time before. And I was like, we really have to like make sure, like, especially in our secluded fucking weird ass corner that we're in, that we really have to fucking make sure that where we swing back to on the right isn't, the fascist dictatorship that they were talking about Donald Trump being. Because like, I honestly believe like there's going to be people that don't give a shit, so much so that they will vote in the Hitler, the next generation of Hitler, because they're just like, fuck it, I don't give a shit anymore. I'd rather that. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. Like, I don't want people to think I'm just speaking facetiously. You posted something that I think it was Conceptual James. I think that's who it was. You were like, he's been talking about this and got ridiculed. And then you posted something that literally proved his point. And I was like, I've been saying this for 2 years. Yeah. And even the people that listen to this podcast are like, dude, you're too hard on the right. You're too hard on the right. And Typo and I have actually gotten in arguments on the podcast about how I feel about the right, because like, I'm like, bro, like I get it. The woke left is the Marxist, the Leninist, the fucking craziness of the left. Like, they are everything that it represents. But the right, yes, they were evangelicals and whatever under Bush. They were the crazy evangelicals. But the other side of that fucking horseshoe is the exact same as the Marxists and the Leninists, and it's the fucking Hitlers. It's the fucking what's his name in Italy. It's those people,
Mussolini's,
Mussolini's.
You could say like, I could honestly, I swear to God, I could see the right wing of this country electing someone that their platform is throwing journalists in jail.
Yes.
Like I guarantee they and some of them I might look the other way on. But I think that the overarching like idea of like throwing journalists in jail is like, kind of a bad thing for like the First Amendment and foundations in this country. But a lot of people are going to be like, fuck that. Don Lemon, Stelter, all those people on the mainstream ones, like, just get rid of them. New York Times, arrest all of them. They wouldn't care. And then people at first, people will be kind of cool with that. And then they start getting to like Glenn Greenwald or other journalists. Us.
I don't know if I call us journalists, but they.
I already know I'm set for the gulag, so it doesn't matter who wins.
And I could see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, imagine in 2006 if you were like, we need to, if some left winger were like, we need to throw fucking Glenn Beck and because back then he really did suck. And who's the guy that died last year?
Rush
Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Bill Kristol. Like, we need to throw these motherfuckers in jail. Like, I would have been like, hell yeah. At least like, myself now back then would have been like, fuck yeah. But then you start realizing like, oh, they're also going to throw Ron Paul in jail, and they're going to throw, like whoever else. They're going to come after Dave Smith. They're going to come after like these right-wing journalists that aren't bad and that aren't, selling war propaganda or whatever. What inspired me to say that was the tweet that I was talking about James Lindsay with is who was it? Charlie Kirk tweeted out that, Satanists don't deserve First Amendment rights.
That's what it was.
And I saw a lot of people that I thought I had a little bit more respect for in support of it, and like not even like Republicans, but like liberty-minded Republicans and
like right-leaning anarchists.
Yeah, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
yeah, dude.
And I was like, it's dumb on two levels. One is Satanists are like, I mean, they're retarded. They're atheists. They're like atheists who want to be religious, who like end up worshiping, like they're just stupid. Fuck them. But
they don't even like worship Satan. They just like
exactly
worship the idea of anything that pisses off right evangelicals.
Yeah, they're just contrarian like weirdos. And if you want to legitimize them, then take away their First Amendment rights. Like, absolutely. I don't know if you've noticed, but any First Amendment rights you take away from anyone, they become radicalized and they become more relevant in society, you know, like the more you do that. So it's dumb on that level, but also what he was saying is like the founders wouldn't have supported Satanism. The whole point of the First Amendment is that you're supposed to be allowed to say whatever you want, regardless of who supports it. You know, like it's not in line with what the regime thinks or whatever. It's just, you are allowed to have your own political speech and say whatever the fuck you want. And the fact that that's lost on like right-wing anarchists and like liberty Republicans is pretty fucking scary. So that was like, just, you know, that was such a sign that people are easily fooled by this shit. And that it won't take much to weaponize it. You know, I mean, because you have so many left-wingers who were against the Patriot Act and they were against the war in Iraq and they were against like innocent people getting fucked over. And they went 100% along with all this COVID shit over the last couple of years because it's mostly taking out right-wingers. So they're like, fuck them, they're right-wingers, who cares? That's
and you
bad.
have the right-wingers like, coming back and doing the same thing. Like, that's exactly what they see. They want revenge. They don't want to progress. And it's like not progression in the sense of progressivism. It's just like, let's move past this fucking stupidness and be better than the people that were just doing this stuff. And like that's been my thing. Like I've been saying it for a long time. Like I just see it's not like I can tell the fucking future, but it's like in the fucking tea leaves, man. It's like, all right, I see the swing back, and the swing back is going to get bad. And maybe it's not this election. Maybe it swings back to the left one more time, and then it swings back, and where video games are banned, you know, like, and I think we've seen a lot in the last, especially the last 2 years, the evangelical, like, anarchists, like the people in our group. That's what bothers me. And I think that's kind of what bothered you that's why you posted about it, was like the evangelical, or not even the evangelical anarchists, just the anarchists that are right leaning, that have really started to buy into the evangelical bullshit of the like right conservatarian or whatever they fuck want to call themselves, has just like exploded in the last 2 years. And I'm not saying that believing in God or whatever else, like being a Christian, is bad. I'm not saying that, but it's the fact of the matter is like, if you believe that my two moms deserve to burn in hell because you are a strict Christian, but you believe in right anarchism, I'm still going to have a fucking problem with you. Like, especially if you were going to base your society off that simple fact that you believe that it's true. And it's like, all right, then we're going to have a fucking problem. Like that's fine. And we'll deal with that if we have to come face to face. I'm not saying it's going to be a physical problem, but I will fight you to this to the very end, just because I think your astuteness, or not astuteness, your very conceited, simple-minded assumption or thought process on that fact is absolutely ridiculous. Like I think it goes against your core beliefs that you are espousing. Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to get your opinion on this, because from my observation over the last year, if you're an atheist and you want to talk about it, you're instantly shut up. Like you are, you get instant accusations that you're belittling Christendom and that you have never read the Bible and you don't know anything about it. I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about me, but I was a Christian until I was 22 and I was brought up in like a very evangelical right-wing home. I know the Bible better than most Christians do. I went to Child Evangelism Fellowship to learn how to evangelize to younger people.
I went on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic when I was in early high school. I passed out tracts. Like, I've done the whole 9 yards. Like, I know how it works. And if I make any critiques of Christianity, like, I'm just instantly crucified, no pun intended. But I don't know, like, if there are people who, and I don't mind, like, I'm friends with some of these people, but they have like Bible verses in their bios and they're nonstop talking about how libertarians without Christianity are not fulfilled, and they're, they don't have enough to live a good life, and they're ultimately going to become degenerate morons like leftists. And like, if I say anything like that, anything in that light about Christians, then I just instantly get fried. And they act like it's the other way. They act like they're persecuted, which is a typical Christian trait, to act like
yes,
all the time.
Thank you, dude. It's like the whole Vin Armani and fucking libertarian
God.
Jesus arguments, like fucking Matthew Erickson. Like, I'm not saying that these guys have bad ideas. Like, that's
I am.
like,
Those guys are
well, all right,
at least like I've
all right,
listened to
so
them.
what I'm, all right,
I've listened to them for like several hours each, and I think both of those guys are fucking retarded. So
okay, thank you. All right, so I agree with that statement. What I meant was, like, to all the people that like look up to those guys or whatever and believe in their evangelical bullshit. It's like, I don't think that having some of the ideas that they have are or I'm trying to word this in the best way possible. Actually, I just don't give a shit. Like, it's more so that what they say contradicts themselves constantly, and they don't even realize it. They're like, you have to.
You got a great point on this, by the way.
Yeah, they contradict themselves constantly, and it's like, oh, you have to be your own, or not, you have to be your own king. You aren't your own king. You can't subvert yourself to other people. The only king is Christ. And it's like, bro, I literally give dick all about Christ. Like, I'm not saying that you can't. I don't disagree. Like, you can believe that shit. And I'm not even saying that there's not a God. Like, that's not my fucking position. I don't really care if there is or not. I'm going to try and live my best life possible, because that's what you should do, and do right by other people. That's just how you should live. And that doesn't define my property rights either. I don't understand how Christendom defines property rights. I really don't fucking get their whole point on that. It makes zero sense whatsoever. And it doesn't make me less of a right-leaning anarchist or a property rights anarchist, however you want to say it. It doesn't make any sense, because those two things don't need to be meshed together for no reason at all, because I can still believe in property rights. I don't have to derive them from something. I don't have to, because they're derived already. They're a thing. Like, I believe in property rights, so that's what it is. It's not, I believe in Christ, therefore I believe in property rights. That doesn't make any sense to me. And like, their whole fucking shtick is wild. And like I said, I don't care that people believe in that shit. Honestly, more power to you. You're taking a leap of faith that I probably will never take, and that's fine. But the only leap of faith I'm able to take and comfortable enough to take is that property rights is the only thing that I can believe in. And that's basically it. Like, don't fuck with my stuff, and I won't fuck with your stuff, and we'll try to like build off this shit. And it has nothing to do with Christ, even if you are a Christ supporter. Like, it doesn't matter.
Matt Erickson blocked me, and it was over this take. So he posted that the idea of letting people choose how they want to live their lives, when you know that it's going to lead them down a lifestyle of damnation, is demonic. And he was quote tweeting something that Ace said, because Ace had said that, yes, I am a libertarian, and I think people should be allowed to make bad decisions in their personal lives. And so then Matt Erickson was quote tweeting him, saying that idea was demonic. So I don't know how much you guys know about the whole Christian framework, but the whole idea of it is that God gives you free will to reject him if you want. So like, you're saying that it's demonic in the libertarian sense, but that's literally like the idea of how Christianity works, that you can reject God. So then I quote tweeted him saying like, so does this make God demonic for giving you the option of free will? and he realized he had made such a stupid fucking comparison, so then he just blocked me. But yeah, they do that all the time. Like, it's just like so blatantly obvious that they're just making it up as they go, and they're just using big words. I say what they're doing is they're pontificating illustriously and elocuting bombastically while not saying anything. You know, they're just like using these big fucking words that no one will understand, and they're not saying anything.
That's what I thought, because when I first heard like Vin Armani, I thought I was just dumb. I was like, I don't understand what this guy is saying. So I listened to him more and more. And I just don't feel like I'm getting a lot. I never felt like I was getting much out of him. Like, I just felt like there was nothing. And I was like, maybe I'm just so stupid for what this guy's talking about. And then after listening to him more and more, I was like, okay, I don't think this guy is really saying a lot. I mean, he's saying a lot of words, but there's no substance to like what he's saying. And that, I don't know, that really turned me off from him. And then
took all the shine off, right? Because it was like big for the Bitcoin thing. Like, it was like, oh man, this guy's like big on Bitcoin. And then it like went straight to Bitcoin Cash and like just like overarching cryptos in general. And then it was just like, all the shine was gone once the fucking Christendom and the fucking change to what was it, Cypress Hill or some shit. That's what I called them. I called them Cypress Hill and Libertarian Jesus. That's what I referred to him on a couple of times on the podcast. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
We're getting close to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask you this before you left. What do you think? Well, I don't even ask you. We know the state of the Libertarian Party now. Do you think the Libertarian Party has potential?
Yes. I mean, I've changed my approach to it over the last couple of years. Like, I never was part of it until 2020. I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, but I didn't join the Libertarian Party. And I was a Rand Paul supporter in 2016. And I think what became obvious to me was that the Republicans just weren't interested in what he was selling. I mean, like, he was a boring person, but they were into Trump. They weren't into him. Like, they were into let's bomb the shit out of them and let's have all these trade wars. It wasn't, the libertarian message at all. So I was like, okay, I don't really think that the Republicans are that into libertarianism. And then I pragmatically supported Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. And it's very obvious the Democrats weren't about any of that, like any of the stuff that they're supposed to be good on. So then I was like, all right, maybe this Libertarian Party thing is what I should be a part of, because they actually represent what I believe, or they're supposed to. And I still had this idea of, we got to get someone to be president so they can actually get in there and try to fix things. And I think 2020 just ruined that for me in a good way. Like, it was just like, no, this is fucking retarded. That's never going to happen.
The truth.
Yeah. So I think I still believe in politics at like a local level. I think it does make a difference. Like, I am actually considering running for state legislature when I move back to New Hampshire, because it's very localized, and I'm only going to be representing maybe 4,000 people or something, so I can actually make substantive change for those people. And then I think, like, I realized throughout 2021, my governor, even though he kind of sucks, he did put his foot down with the COVID mandates and said, nope, we're not doing any of this. We are the state of Utah and we're going to run ourselves. So I was like, okay, like, it's undeniable that made a difference. Like, if I had some Democrat governor who ended up going along with it, that would have made my life different than it did. So I think, I'm certainly not against voting Republican or Democrat if somehow that ends up, actually being a good idea in some rare cases. But I think, like, what Shane Hazel is doing in Georgia,
fuck yeah,
I love it, because you even had Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting out that Republicans need to listen to libertarians.
Yes.
And like, the guy who's running for governor, I don't know much about him, the Republican dude.
He's garbage.
And I don't know much about the Democrat either, but from what I've heard, they're not very good. I know the people that Shane ran against for Senate in 2020 were fucking awful. The Republican had a 20% constitutional voting record. And I think AOC has like a 58 or something. So it just gives you an idea of how fucking awful they were. So why vote Republican in that case? So it's not even that I think he can win, because I don't really think he can. But when you have an awful Republican and an awful Democrat, you can force them to be better. You could be like, look, I'm not voting for either of you guys because you suck. And you can kind of make demands. So even if you have like a sort of good Republican who's running, you can say, hey, you know what, you really suck on drugs. If you want to get the libertarian vote, you need to change your position on this. And we need to see some action. And if we don't see any action while you're governor, we're going to run against you and get the Democrat elected again.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think that has a lot of potential, usefulness. And then I think in some cases you can actually win. Like, I don't know what'll happen with Jeremy Kauffman for Senate, but I think that's very interesting, and I'm moving back to be a part of that because I don't know, like I don't think that's impossible that he could win. If that happens,
that'd be hilarious. That'd be fucking funny.
Me and Luke kind of just before you came on, we were talking about like if there is going to be a Libertarian Party, like now might be one of the best times to have it because we've been a little bit talking about like the rise of populism, where you can just like skip, you don't need to be on the news anymore. I mean, like Jeremy Coughlin, he has those walks every day and he just talks for about like a minute or two and talks about what he wants to do or his thoughts or whatever. Like you can just directly talk to your audience now, or your voters. You don't need to go through these old fashioned ways anymore. And I mean, the Democrats and Trump took advantage of that. AOC took advantage of that. Marjorie Taylor Greene took advantage of that. And I think like if the libertarians should be jumping on that same train. And I mean, I don't know. Me and Luke go back and forth all the time. Like you asked us a year ago, like we were just like, fuck the Libertarian Party. This is terrible. And then I see like little glimmers of hope and I'm like, maybe there's a chance. And then something else happens and I get pissed off again. But, I do think with like, kind of like I'm, what me and Luke are at least attracted to in the Libertarian Party, if we ever decide to go that way, would be something like the Mises Caucus is doing, like really changing the way things up and just addressing like the serious issues that libertarians should focus on. And like you said, like me and Luke are pretty good, I would say really good friends with Shane Hazel, and we've had him on all the time talking about that. And it was incredible. I mean, he got Rand Paul on there basically trying to get
did you guys watch that?
Because
because that's like so painful. It's just like, dude, he's right, what he's saying is true. And you can see it in his eyes.
And it was a little bit like awesome because it was watching Shane Hazel go up against like a sitting Republican and Rand Paul, but it was also very disappointing because Rand Paul didn't even like defend the dude. He had nothing to defend him on. He had nothing to say. He was just always like, well, this would help.
Just like,
me.
If you get Republicans in, I might be able to do more. Like that was his only.
Yes.
And dude, it sucks because like I get that so many people have never been Rand Paul fans, but like he's the guy who got me into all of this. I mean, because his dad, I did like him. I graduated high school the year his dad was running, and I was like, okay, this guy's kind of cool. But I didn't like him for any of the right reasons. I mean, some of them were like, I like that he was honest, like that was attractive, but it was mostly like, this guy actually wants to end food stamps, like that was because I was still a dumbass Republican back then. But then in 2014, when Rand filibustered John Brennan's nomination, and he was actually doing it the right way for like 14 hours, like actually had a speech written out, like that really caught my attention. And then when he started, he was saying like,
he was so good.
Dude, he was so good. Like if you go back and watch him in like 2012 and 2010, like he's saying we shouldn't be sending aid to Israel back then. Like it was just like, it was so
if Rand Paul wasn't the son of Ron Paul, he would be a fucking legend. Like we would be like, oh, like he's the legendary Republican. But just because everyone compares him to his dad, he just falls short. But he's still like, I mean, he's been one of the best against Fauci and the COVID cult and everything.
But he has gotten worse too. Like it's not just that he's Ron Paul's son, but if you look at him 10 years ago, he was so much better than he is now. And he's compromised so much away.
He's let the system get him.
Yeah. I mean, it's depressing. Like, going back and watching in 2016 when he was like frying Trump for wanting to. Oh, this is so funny. It's so ironic when Trump was saying we need to close down certain parts of the internet because we don't want extremism to be festering. And, it's like, dude, this is exactly what they did to you. They kicked you off the internet because they were worried about extremism. Like it's exactly what happened. And Rand Paul was like, standing up and screaming against that. Like, we have something called the First Amendment, and we'd have to get rid of that if we want the government shutting down parts of the internet. And Trump was just like, oh no, like, being a dumbass. And then in 2020, just seeing like Rand Paul just lick his ass all the time. And it was so funny because Rand would be like, if you want to end the wars, you need to vote for Donald Trump. Now let me go filibuster the fucking arms sales to Saudi Arabia that Trump is trying to do. It's just like, dude, what is going on? Just the cognitive dissonance there was just.
He was definitely kind of like playing both sides. And that was a little frustrating. I wish he was a little bit harder on Trump. That was one thing that was kind of annoying. But I don't know. People make arguments that maybe it worked for him, but I don't know. I think it kind of made him look weak.
Yeah, I don't think it played off for him in the end. I mean, it is possible that Rand Paul stopped us from going to war with Iran. Like, that's not an impossibility because, Pompeo and all the neocon Zionists like convinced Trump to take out Soleimani. And then right after that happened, you could tell that Trump was like, oh shit, what do I do? And then he did have a phone call with Rand Paul, like right before he did his speech. And then he kind of switched his narrative on it, like, oh, I don't actually want a war with Iran. This was just like to stop a war, and we'll like back down if they don't do anything. So I don't know, like maybe Rand did say like, hey, look, you fucking asshole, I have sucked your dick so much and made you look so good, but the only reason I'm doing that is because you said you were going to end these wars and you're about to start another one, so you better fucking stop right now. Like, I have no idea what that phone call was like, but it is possible he's if that's true that he stopped World War III from happening, then I take everything back I said, because who knows.
Thank God.
yeah, for sure. I don't know,
but well, I gotta head out of here. I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for showing up, dude. We'll have to do it again when you get some free time, maybe after that March run you got.
Yeah, man, I'm so sorry I'm late. I feel bad. And
no, you're fine, dude.
But I'll certainly do it again, and I'll try to get you guys on my show too. So try to make up for my fucking tardiness. So
yeah, we'd love to come on anytime, and yeah, you're always welcome to come on ours. We just like to bullshit and have a good time, kind of like the Tower Power Hour guys, but we're I guess more military based when it comes to a lot of the things. But I mean, we have a good time. We sit here and joke, and every once in a while we have a serious episode. So it was good having you on, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, well, that's the fucking shit show. Typo, you got anything?
I just want to say thanks for coming on, man, and that's pretty much it.
All right, go follow fucking Reed and check out Naturalist Capitalist podcast. It's fucking dope. He has a really good sense of things, probably better than us on a lot of things. So go check out his podcast. I hope you guys fucking enjoyed it. We out.